We are live on the air. Hello, Kitty.
We're live on the air. We're
How
live.
are you?
He doesn't care. It's dinner time, and that's all that matters. Is this one? Hi, everybody. We're live on the air.
Well,
It's
that's what
Torn
Denethor
Tuesday.
said as well. And
I
nothing
said
got in the way of Denethor's dinner.
no. Nothing got in the way of the royal man eating his royal dinner. That is a great analogy, and appropriate for the Tolkien audience. And you're all gathered here today for what? Your love of the world and the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. That's why we welcome you once again to the OneRing.net Torn Tuesday live stream show hosted by Mr. Justin Sewell, who's right over there, and me, myself, and I, a little cat named Mithrandir. I'm Clifford Broadway, longtime writer and contributor to the OneRing.net. And hello, everybody. Look, we survived Comic-Con. Boy, did we. And it was just such an experience, such a weekend. And now we're back in the thick of it with, as we have been reporting regularly, we're in a continuing actors and writers strike here with the Writers Guild of America West and the Screen Actors Guild as well, SAG-AFTRA, joining together in an ongoing strike against the producers and the big studios and the streamers, the kind of folks that make shows like The Rings of Power and shows like that we're all interested in. So we're here to report on the news and subjects of great interest to you Tolkien fans, and we welcome everybody in the live chat. That includes a lot of folks out there on different platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and a wonderful group of people, always exciting and dynamic in our Discord. Welcome to the live show, everyone. Justin, how are you feeling, sir? Did your voice come back?
I'm
Is your
very
voice
good.
better?
I'm
Yes.
recovered from Comic-Con.
Good.
It always takes a lot out of me.
Good.
I don't think you guys realize that
It's true.
as when you exhibit at a convention, not only do you have to do a full week and then a full day on Sunday, then you have to break
Mhm.
down the booth. I didn't leave San Diego until like 1 a.m, dismembering the booth, loading it up on trucks and stuff like that. But you're right. It is week 13 of the writer's strike, and a few weeks short of that of the Screen Actors Guild strike. All the SAG actors are on strike, and now the UK actors have started to protest along with their American counterparts in SAG. So we support the strikers, the several Torn members, the OneRing.net, abbreviated to Torn, have been on the strike lines for all these 12 weeks. Cliff, this is day 93. We are next week. We will
Wow.
hit day 100 of the writer's strike, and the current latest news. Again, our pal Sean Astin is on the negotiating committee at SAG. Both his parents were former presidents of the Screen Actors Guild Union.
That's right.
So Sean Astin, Samwise himself, grew up in a union household with union leadership as his parents, and you have to imagine he's learned a lot from his parents over the years. And as far as we've heard, the studios are planning on keeping the actors on strike as the same length as the writers, up to 100 days, which puts potentially this strike lasting through the end of the year. We're talking January until new projects and a new deal may be announced. So
You know what? Everyone is going to be listening to their quarterly earnings reports. When these big boys sit down at the table, when Warner Brothers Discovery or the folks at Disney sit down and have their conference call that goes out to the media that we all get to hear and get to share, when they have their little conversations with their shareholders and talk about their earnings, that's going to be a real pendulum swing in the conversation for negotiations and where the strikers can actually say, our demands are not unreasonable. Look at how much money you cats are making.
well, the
You're
latest
walking
rumor
away with the
today
money bags
was
and,
the studios
walking away
are
with it.
considering buying Mattel's video unit called Entertainment One, who just had
That's
a
right.
huge
That's right.
success with the Barbie movie. Mattel
Oh.
or Hasbro, no, Hasbro want wants to sell its movie division.
That's right.
And
That's right.
so in the middle of it, in the middle of this strike, where the studios are saying, "Oh, we don't have enough money," they're going to spend billions of dollars acquiring more companies. So
Do you know what's
should
interesting? A side connection between The Lord of the Rings and Mattel that you did not know. The director of photography and co-producer of our documentary feature, Ringer's Lord of the Fans, he went on to work for Mattel Toy Division, helping produce and make their toy commercials for Barbie and other big toy brands that they have. Interesting connection. Didn't know that, but there you
That's
go.
wonderful.
Now,
Before we get
here's the
going,
thing.
I just wanted to
One more
follow up
side
with
note
Comic Con.
that I know,
We got
but
sponsored from what's it called? Diamond Select Toys. Every goodie bag got these hard plastic things. And Cliff, I've been going
and here's
through
why. Here's why.
all of our.
You want to protect those valuable,
That's what
expensive
I've been
cards.
doing. Oh, I just
Don't
dropped
want
it.
them. You don't. Oh, see,
This-
exactly. That's why. That
This was
illustrates
like
it for
a
us.
$70 card last time I checked when we opened these live on the air.
Yeah.
So I've been going through the my cards that we've been opening in previous weeks
Yes.
to see
To prepare for some online sales in the secondary
Well,
market.
I just want to protect them because I'm not
Of
really
course.
playing with anybody
Of
right
course.
now.
Wait, if we were here in person, broadcasting from Scum and Villainy Cantina, my good friend, I would embroil you in the most exciting strategic gameplay of Magic the Gathering with Lord of the Rings cards. If we could do that soon, I would love that. But let me add one additional appendix, one little button to that. And I do want to say thank you to the sponsor from our party for giving us these great card protector sleeves. Did you see the quick report that the CEO of AMC Theater Chain said that last weekend at the end of July was the biggest weekend in the history of AMC cinemas in the 103 years of their existence as AMC American Movie Company, having theaters around the country. He said that Barbenheimer phenomenon for the week of box office of through July 27th was the greatest ever in the history of that theater chain, or AMC theaters. And now I could just imagine Nicole Kidman finally being released from that room, finally being released from that empty theater where she's been trapped for so long.
You know, I've never ever
Little
seen
joke there.
this legendary video that plays in front of movies at AMC theaters. So
You're kidding.
The other thing I wanted
You're
to mention,
kidding. That's
if
funny.
you were at the party, most of the bags, if not many of the bags, included a free copy of Gollum, the video game. This is one of the cards with the redemption code, and turns out I have a few leftover codes
Ooh,
for
okay.
PlayStation.
Okay.
But I don't have a PlayStation. I have an Xbox. So
That's
if
right. I have an
anybody
Xbox
watching
too.
this show
Okay.
got a goodie bag and has a code for Xbox and would like to trade for a PlayStation 5 code, I would like to play the Gollum game on my Xbox. And if you have a PlayStation, I would like to trade you for a PlayStation code. So if you were at the party, you got a goodie bag, and you got one of our free game codes for Lord of the Rings Gollum, please trade me. My phone number is right there in the corner. Yes, that's really my phone number, 530-643-7636. That spells 530-64-Frodo. Yeah, that's my number. You can text it right now during the show, and I'll get the message. XOXO in the chat room says you've never seen the Nicole video. Lucky luck. Steven says saw Barbie and Oppenheimer in the same weekend. Both were phenomenal and made for one of the best movie release weekends I've ever had. David says I have both PS4 and Xbox. Yeah, see, I have both. I used to have PlayStation, but I don't anymore, so I just have Xbox. You know, I feel like, Cliff, you and I grew up in an era where there were great movies being released the same weekend all the time. Of course, we recently acknowledged a huge weekend where Ghostbusters was released the same weekend as like some other iconic nerd movie. So I like the Barbenheimer is just what we grew up with, where there was just a lot of movies coming out. every week. And I hope we get back to that. And the only way to get back to that is to make more movies. And to make more movies, you got to spend less on fewer movies and spread those big budgets out.
You know what? Spending less is a great idea, because you can give really talented independent filmmakers less than the 150 $200 million budgets, and they can run with it and produce some of the most amazing things.
Well,
I've
hold
seen
that
it happen.
thought, Cliff,
I've seen it happen.
You've seen it happen. So let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
What can a small movie like that be done in the Lord of the Rings franchise?
Yeah, absolutely.
How,
oh my
how?
goodness, absolutely.
Like the level of expectation. I mean, Amazon spent $1 billion on season 1 because they had to match Peter Jackson's aesthetic, which cost a combined $1 billion for all 6 movies to produce.
Yeah, they did. They did.
But
there are other stories.
Why do you think that?
I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
There are other stories outside the end of the Third Age. There are so many other stories outside the big battles. The stuff that is
contained
the War
in
of
the
the Ring,
book, in the appendices, right?
in the appendices, and in other posthumously published works.
No. Let's not go
the
there.
Silmarillion,
You and
the
I
Unfinished
specifically.
Tales.
Nope. I'm not going to allow that conversation. You and I specifically know that the Silmarillion rights are not in anyone's hands. So, the rights that you and I know are currently employed
in the appendices
by Amazon and by Warner Brothers.
There are intimate stories that can be told. There are smaller scale intimate stories that can be told that on a budget. Okay.
Chat room. I'm asking the chat room as well.
Queen Beruthiel and her cats. Imagine a dark, weird mystery suspense story about this evil woman running Minas Tirith, and she's sending her evil little cats to spy on people, and maybe there is some spying that needs to be spied upon. Maybe there is dark espionage in Minas Tirith. It doesn't involve massive orc battles with tens of thousands of troops of elves and dwarves and orcs. It's like smaller scale, something creepy and weird, like it could be a combination of like The Watcher in the Woods with like an atmosphere piece, like the back streets of Gondor. Okay, here's one. That's just one. Queen Beruthiel and her cats. How about something else that could be smaller scale? Definitely The Scouring of the Shire. That doesn't require tens of thousands of.
That's pretty violent, and there's a big battle, and there's a lot of intrigue.
Only a battle between some people. That could be stop motion animation, hand drawn animation. That could be live action. That could be a mini series, a special limited series. That like Obi-Wan Kenobi was a special limited series. So The Scouring of the Shire could be done smaller budget. It doesn't have 40,000 orcs. It has a few men and a few hobbits.
The Hunt for Gollum. Someone says
The Hunt for Gollum. Yep. That's the third one. I was going to jump to that. The Hunt for Gollum, a character study where Aragorn and Gollum are challenged against each other in the wilderness, trapped in the wilderness until Aragorn can find his way again and get back on course. And while Gollum, seething with venom, darkness in his heart. Imagine Aragorn trying to scuttle that evil creature across the landscape. And that doesn't require giant, massive battle sequences, but it could refer to other things, and other Istari could show up. You could have Radagast, Thranduil show up again. Could be interesting. Hello, Lee Pace. Welcome back to the cinematic universe.
I've always championed the idea of, I would love a movie by Terrence Malick, the auteur Terrence Malick. He is only he does wonderful films that are under $30 million. They're so small films, character pieces, and I really think there's a way to get Terrence Malick to recognize the authority of Tolkien's writing, and get Terrence Malick involved not as a franchise film, but as a standalone small movie with a small cast, but a crucial cast that explores, I don't know, the elves' relationship with nature, or man's relationship with death, you know, or teenage Aragorn's relationship with legacy. I've that's what I want. Terrence Malick in a slow paced, like slow like molasses, you know, not for everybody type movie, and you give him $20 or $30 million.
You know how much I love those Terrence Malick slow as molasses type of approaches to movies? Hey, I get that in my Miyazaki movies sometimes. You definitely get that in some anime, like Takahata. His final film, The Tale of the Princess Kaguya, last film he did before he died, was a smoldering, long, bittersweet burn. And it was as slow as molasses, and it was gorgeous and painterly. It was the most visually aesthetic thing you've ever seen, but it was dark and slow and not filled with upbeat pacing or big action sequences. It was a different approach to a meditation on regret, a meditation on regret. Now, think about J.R.R. Tolkien and his characters and the situations that they get into. Imagine a Terrence Malick kind of approach, like you just said, that is more of a meditative piece on some of what Tolkien's characters get into. And I really think you got potential there. I love it. I love the garden of these ideas.
I think there's room for both of this, and especially
Yeah.
because Amazon is not backing down with Rings of Power. Season 2 is going to cost the same that season 1 cost, maybe even more. Who knows? They are not going smaller. They are only going bigger and bigger. And the stories that showrunners have told us they want to tell over the 5 seasons of Rings of Power only get bigger and bigger and bigger. So in a world, in a movie-going world, TV-going world, where there is a Lord of the Rings TV show that keeps getting bigger and bigger in scale and bigger, there's room for a smaller thing. And I was hoping that Amazon would have greenlit smaller spin-offs by now, even animated spin-offs. I mean, they did an animated spin-off of The Boys called Invincible, and that became a huge hit. They did animated shorts of Wheel of Time. So Amazon is in the business of doing small spin-offs of their big franchises. Why don't we see any of that already for Lord of the Rings? Whether or not it ties into the Rings of Power main story, I don't care. There's so much to tell. Tell these small stories. There's so many. And I think there's room in the marketplace for this.
I agree.
But
I do agree.
Speaking of spin-offs and speaking of Amazon,
Cliff, here we go.
I watched the brand new season just launched on Amazon for Good Omens. And boy, oh boy,
I can't wait to see it.
I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but it delivers the goods. Neil Gaiman at his best.
Tell me, did you binge all the episodes or just part of it?
No, it was so savory. The performances are so savory. And it's interesting. Good Omens is season 2 is both smaller in story. It's literally about the 2 main characters, David Tennant and who's the other one? I forget.
The guy who was in Frost Nixon.
Yes.
Yes.
Azraphale and
Aziraphale and Crowley. Yes.
So it's all about their relationship throughout the season, but the tiny little world building that comes in expands the world so much that I just had to digest. I had to take 2 or 3 episodes at a time. I took 3 episodes at a time because I was just like, all right, what does that mean? Not a lot happened here, but the implications of what they're talking about is huge. And it was really, really fun. And it is interesting that Amazon has released Good Omens all at once. They released The Boys weekly. They released Wheel of Time weekly. They released Rings of Power weekly. Citadel. That's right,
they did.
They did weekly. Amazon is in the business of releasing weekly. It's very curious that they dumped all of Good Omens season 2 this weekend.
That is a different pattern. That is a strange and different pattern.
Michael Sheen, thank you so much.
Michael Sheen, thanks everyone. I love Michael Sheen, and I have to say, I love him against Helen Mirren in The Queen, where he plays the Prime Minister
I
against
loved him in
Elizabeth,
Underworld as the
Queen Elizabeth.
vampire.
Yep,
No,
and
no, he's not the vampire. He's the
his
werewolf.
best
Wait, no, he's
performance,
the.
his best film, honestly, is in Ron Howard's Frost Nixon. That is one of Michael Sheen's best performances. I love that movie so much.
Oh,
Um,
Susan,
it's like
interesting comment in the chat room. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good thing. But I really like Good Omens. But to
oh,
coincide with the release of the Good Omens season 2 TV show, which Neil Gaiman, because of the strike of the writer's
no
strike, he has
way.
done no promotion for the TV show.
That's right. That's right.
He was
That's right.
scheduled to come to Comic-Con. He had his flights booked and everything. He decided not to come to Comic-Con, and he hasn't tweeted about the Good Omens TV show by Amazon. He's holding the picket line, but not related to Amazon is a brand new Amazon, not affiliated. Here it is. Kickstarter launched today for Good Omens, the graphic novel, for the first time,
Drawn by our friend Colleen Doran.
who was featured in your documentary, Ringers, Lord of the Fans.
That's right. Confessing her love of Viggo Mortensen.
That's
As
right.
Aragorn,
So
yes.
they launched that this morning, I believe at 10 o'clock local time. And Cliff, can you guess how much it's already made in just the first 8 hours?
Isn't it overfunded? Like fully funded and beyond funded? That
Yes.
much, right? Yeah,
Yes.
how much? Tell me.
Just take a guess. Take a wild guess. First 8 hours. Neil Gaiman's Good Omens
I'm going to
graphic
guess
novel.
that it is 300% funded. I'll guess that.
Well, they asked for $32,000. It is
32
currently at
thou? Only 32 thou?
and is currently at $481,000.
Wow.
It is at 1,000%.
You're kidding. It really?
In
Wow,
the first eight
that's
hours,
really
they are
impressive.
approaching $500,000 for the Good Omens Kickstarter.
They only asked for 32K.
Reward, every reward level gets the hardcover graphic novel illustrated by Colleen Doran.
Colleen Doran.
And then
She's so wonderful. That is so wonderful.
The extras include extra prints,
Yeah.
all the way up to being the 666 Beelzebub tier. I don't know what that is. The Archangel tier, you get to be a character in the book.
No way.
A higher
How cool
tier,
is
you
that?
get to be a featured character in the book.
Oh my
Colleen
goodness.
will draw your likeness as the character.
Oh my goodness gracious. That is so wild.
Good Omens.
So wild.
So congrats
I
to,
think that's pretty cool though. Really, that's
Colleen
happening.
and Neil
Well
Gaiman
done.
and the estate of Terry Pratchett. And so what I've heard about this is other estates of dead novelists are paying attention.
Oh, really?
I will just leave it at that. The success of this Good Omens that is put on by the Terry Pratchett estate with support by Neil Gaiman and illustrated by Colleen Doran is everyone's paying attention, including other estates of other authors that are relevant to this show. I'm just gonna put that out there.
It is when it is handled properly by the estate, then anything can happen. Now, let's lead that to the next question about the Tolkien estate. Let's have a show of hands, perhaps with our folks in the chat room. I can see YouTube folks right here. Can you imagine a connecting story from the appendices? Not just a retelling, maybe sometime we could have a massive graphic novel series of the Lord of the Rings itself.
Yes.
One that's never been done before. Maybe one that's never been done. But
that's what this book is. This is the original 40-year-old Good Omens book.
Good Omens. Yeah, the original.
Republished, redesigned as a graphic novel.
I'm thinking that there's a lot of potential for graphic novels and comic series for sustained storytelling in the Tolkien universe, in Arda. Let's see. All right, folks. Yeah. Are there folks in the chat saying yes? Baron and Luthien, Young Aragorn graphic novel.
Look,
Okay.
keep it
I have a
simple.
graphic
Just
novel of The
just do
Hobbit.
a
Hey, I have the graphic novel of The Hobbit
just
as
do a
well.
Lord of the Rings graphic novel.
They did a
And
really
do it
beautiful
per
Hobbit.
book. There's 6
All right.
books, right? 6
Yeah.
books, 3 volumes,
Mm-hmm.
1 story, right? That's the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it's David Wenzel's The Hobbit. Yep, thank you, Daniel, in the chat for mentioning that. I have copies of that right there on my shelf. They were all done in lovely watercolors, really entertaining and whimsical designs for The Hobbit, and it was all in great watercolors. His technique is perfect for that kind of story. So yeah, Tom and Goldberry. Yes, Susan is onto something. I would dig a whole special graphic novel that is just the poems, the collected poetry of Tom Bombadil and other poems. Remember that book?
No, I don't. I
There's a
just
Ballantine
want the
paperback.
basics. I want Lord of the Rings as a
Well,
graphic
that's a
novel.
given.
Don't
Yeah, that's a given.
complicate this.
I'm not complicating. I'm just
yeah.
saying that there's infinite possibilities. Aside from the obvious, everyone obviously would love a big, chonky, awesome Lord of the Rings graphic novel. But there could be other successful endeavors as well from other stories. That's all I'm saying. With a wink. With a wink. I'm saying it.
Wouldn't it be interesting if everybody came together with this new era of leadership with Lord of the Rings, with Christopher and Priscilla gone? There's the new people, the Tolkien family are now in control of the estate. Now that Embracer has purchased Middle Earth Enterprises and all the rights to merchandise, and Amazon having the biggest publishing empire the world has ever seen in ebooks and in bookstores, online bookstore. I mean, everything is set up to do right by fans, and Kickstarter is the way to go. The chat room mentioned Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, Brandon Sanderson said post-pandemic, he's like, I got 6 books I've been writing, and here, pre-order it right now. And he set records at like a crazy amount of money. Like
sure did.
During 7th or something.
During 7th is mentioning Dark Horse Comics. That's the kind of publisher.
Embracer owns Dark Horse Comics.
That's the kind of publisher that came to mind immediately because they are under the umbrella of Embracer's deal. Yes.
Right.
And that's right. Yeah. Well, guess what? There's a lot of possibility. So let's put it out there. Wow.
The question
an
is,
adaptation of the Lord of the Rings is a big, beautiful graphic novel series.
Is a graphic novel a book covered by the Houghton Mifflin Tolkien estate deal? Or is a graphic novel an adaptation?
It would be a
piece of merch covered by the Middle Earth Enterprises deal.
It would be an adaptation.
It would be
unless they reproduced the book so much reproduced the book. Imagine narrator's captions in it. If they really are reproducing big sections of the book, this would be maybe a hybrid of, and maybe that's a good word because comic books are an art form that combines both the visual and the written word in sequential art, as it was explained brilliantly by Scott McCloud in his seminal bestseller, Understanding Comics. Refer to comic strip art as sequential art, and you're manipulating printed language as much as you're manipulating the way the eye transposes images and turns them into movement in the back of the brain and interprets it as movement between the panels drawn on the page. So I would say this is where the Houghton Mifflin folks would say, well, you're using big, huge chunks of Professor Tolkien's actual text. And then the artists would say, we're using these new illustrations and paintings to interpret a new adaptation, a new vision. So it might be both. This might very well be a hybrid of both things. What's that? What are you holding up there?
It says To Cliff, Quick Beam.
Oh, hey.
Got this in the mail today.
No, where'd that come from? That's wonderful.
From our pal.
Who was that from? That's cool.
our pal Jerry Vanderstelt has sent you an autographed lithograph
Oh,
of his
no
brand
way.
new
That's
Comic-Con
beautiful.
exclusive.
Oh,
This
how
is what
cool.
Jerry Vanderstelt had at Comic-Con.
That is super cool. Those lithographs he had were really beautiful. They're
They were very popular too.
wow, how cool. I have to say thank you. Thank you very much indeed for that. Yeah, I see the hearts,
And the
little
crazy
hearts.
thing is he sent a triptych of 3 posters all autographed
That's
to Quickbeam.
no, he did not. Oh man, that is so cool. He actually sent them for me. That's brilliant.
So just got these in the mail. So our pal Jerry Vanderstelt, and of course there is the Comic Con exclusive logo. You can't get these anywhere else. He's not allowed to sell them because they were
Wow.
Comic Con exclusive. There you go, Cliff. I'll have these for you next time I see
Dude,
you.
thank you so much. That is super, super, super amazing.
He just
And he's
Jerry
such a
just loves
thoughtful.
everything that you've been bringing to fandom all these years.
He is a very thoughtful, wonderful artist, and I'm so glad to have met him and appreciate his friendship with the OneRing.net and all of us in the Tolkien world. That's brilliant.
And
Brilliant.
as I understand it,
Totally brilliant.
I
Wow.
didn't have a deep conversation about it, but as I
Wow.
understand it, the most of his artwork is based on the Warner Brothers movies by Peter Jackson
Yeah.
because
Because
if he designed something on his own, that would fall under the book license that the Tolkien
oh.
estate still has.
Oh, okay.
So theoretically, a graphic
Okay.
novel could be made of the Peter Jackson movies. Would you like to see that? Or do you think a graphic novel of Lord of the Rings needs to be
No.
its own thing?
No. Graphic novel of The Lord of the Rings needs to be like the earlier graphic novel of The Hobbit. It needs to be its own real, genuine adaptation of the original work because it deserves that much sensibility and care. It deserves that kind of um, elevated sensibility about how to do it.
And this leads to
Like you would agree, wouldn't you?
yeah,
Yeah,
totally. And
sure.
and one of the big things that I kept hearing at Comic-Con from all of the fans that stopped by the booth, went to the panel, said hi to us all day, chatted at the party. Um, Fans are ready for more varied takes on Lord of the Rings.
Well, yeah, more unvaried
Not
takes.
everything has to be Peter Jackson based. The feedback we got is, some people are all in on Amazon's world building, and they want to see more of that. But a lot of people just want to see more Lord of the Rings, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be movie based. It doesn't have to be merch based on the movies. People just want to see more artistic representations and adaptations, whether it's art, music, video games, animated, short films, merch, whatever it is. I don't know who you if you talk to anybody, but the vibe I got coming out of Comic-Con is
Yes.
fans are already there. Fans are ready for the next phase of Lord of the
Yes,
Rings.
they are. Now, looking at the way that Star Wars Visions has come out with a couple of seasons, an anthology series with different animators taking really widely various animated takes on Star Wars world and the galaxy far, far away. Intriguing. Don't you think our fandom would also dig a whole bunch of different animated voices coming to an anthology series
That's what's
about
shocking about Amazon
Middle
not
Earth?
fully exploiting its TV license. Like
Yeah, I
Amazon,
thought that.
you paid so much money for it. Why aren't you hiring like everybody?
Wouldn't you have thought that had been announced by now? I think. Yeah.
The chat room is agreeing. Anonymous Girl says fans are definitely ready for more Lord of the Rings content, but it should be written well. Anything that is done well,
Yes.
says Daisy
Yes.
Kim. And look, that's the lesson, I
Yes.
think, after the
Yes.
Gollum game came out to poor reviews and
Yes.
Rings of Power Season 1 came out to average reviews,
Mm-hmm.
is uh,
Mm-hmm.
the threshold for quality needs to stay high,
Yes.
but the budgets and the world building and the big orc battles, those don't need to be there all the time. As you just said, Cliff, in your smaller movie discussion, uh, spend your money on writing and then make a
Yes.
smaller movie.
Hi, Brian in the chat. Hello, good to see you. And yeah, I agree with that. That's the bottom line. Spend the money and the proper resources on the writers and let the enrichment go outward from there. The
And
creative enrichment of the whole project.
Brian in chat room, and I think a lot of the chat room is kind of subtly saying Rings of Power suffered from the writing. I think we all agree, but let me caveat that with several conversations we've had in the last 6 months. It's
Yeah.
because the writers were short shafted, that they
Uh-huh.
were
That's
under supported.
exactly right.
A
That's
show
right.
of this size, the writers
Yep.
should have been employed for 6 months, not
Yep.
6 weeks.
Exactly.
Breaking an
And
entire show that's worth $1 billion in
yep.
6 weeks, and then getting 2 episodes cut out at the
Yep.
last minute from 10 episodes to 8, and
Not
then
good.
not having the whole writing staff on team to readjust all of the scripts, and then having to recast Celebrimbor, a main character in your season, recasting him, cutting out whole scenes with him, and not having the writers on set in New Zealand to make these changes.
Mm-hmm.
The writing suffered, but it's not the writer's fault. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Preach it, Justin. Seriously.
And
Can I
that's
get
why
an
they're
a?
striking.
Can I get an amen up in here? I want the chat room to give me an amen
That's
up in
why they're
here because
striking.
that is exactly the truth. It's interesting to say because of the writing, but it's not the writer's fault. That it sounds like an inherent contradiction in terms, but it is not when you look at it with that certain clarity and the way you laid it out just now. When you look at it and analyze it truly for what happened, understaffed writers will give you a very different product than fully staffed writers who are given ample amounts of time, especially when working on something so large scale and critical as a $1 billion adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien. Especially
You know who got a
at that
full.
level, the apparent care that is required should have automatically been on the carpet, on the ground, in the room before anybody put any other furniture in the room.
And the reason
Just
we
saying.
keep saying this every week is because not only do we want to tell the fandom, what's really going on, but we want to
Yeah.
encourage fans to let the writers know on social media wherever you follow them, because
Yes.
it is week 13. We're approaching 100 days of strike for the Writers Guild. These people are
Yes.
striking. It's hot. They're exhausted. They're sweaty. They're smelly. Well, when they're striking, they're hungry. They're looking at
They're
their bank
hungry.
account not going up, but only going down, and it
Yes.
can get morally depressing. And I want the writers to know specifically, and we as fans should give every opportunity to remind the writers, we love you. We love Lord of the Rings. We
Yes.
know it's not your fault.
Yes.
So, because it isn't. But big companies are going to
Wow.
make big decisions. But related to that, we talked a little bit about at Comic-Con this current status of War of the Rohirrim.
Yes.
And coming out of France
Oh, yes.
a month and a half ago, there was a general vibe that, maybe they didn't have a lot to show of completed footage, which started the rumor that if they didn't have a lot to show, maybe there isn't a lot done. Well, just a quick update from executive producer of War of the Rohirrim. He says Spider-Verse, which was going to be released 2 weeks before Rohirrim, has officially delayed indefinitely. They
There's
have
the
not
news.
set a new date. So
There's the news.
the third Spider-Verse animated film has been delayed indefinitely.
Yes.
And the executive
Indefinitely.
producer says, LOL, Spider-Verse was absolutely going to move anyway. The rumors of Spider-Verse 3 were the same as Rohirrim, which is they're nowhere close to being done on animation. So my take on this is if the executive producer of Rohirrim is making a comment like this with LOL, it must mean that they are Rohirrim is further along in animation than Spider-Verse was. And this strengthens the possibility that there will not be any delays in Rohirrim, and we will still get a release in April of next year. Cliff, your thoughts?
I would imagine it is safe to assume a couple of points in our analysis of this story, or this tweet rather, or this post. I think it's interesting to note that the animation process is a long timeline, a long production timeline. And if they are already at way past stages of storyboarding, and layout, if they're done with all that, and the animators are just aggressively working on character animation, or they're doing post-production with sound, music, and other effects animation, if they're in the later stage of that pipeline, those animators are not working under a strike because the animators union is not currently under strike.
They're still working.
That's right. So let the animators do their work. If the writers are completely hands off and don't change a thing, that would make sense because they have long ago storyboarded and written the story and did the breakdown of the story and all those dynamic elements of story beats changing and crest and wave for every that's the way these animation sequences are built throughout the entire runtime of a feature-length film. It's a fascinating process, but I'm sure I can safely assume they're way down the production pipeline, and we can probably say it's not just a rumor, but it is a statistical analysis that says War of the Rohirrim is probably so far along, they're just going to keep that engine chugging right on time, and we'll be able to be out in theaters on time as normally scheduled. Barring that, if they do any additional scenes or decide to film an epilogue or an additional sequence, they may not be able to bring Brian Cox or any other actors back into any recording studio for any other voice work. If it's not recorded now, I don't think those folks are going to get in front of a microphone again until the strike is resolved.
Which would be early next year, January or February, possibly.
Yeah, that's my thought.
Cliff, I think everybody agrees that Ismael Cruz Cordova was one of the best parts of season 1 of Rings of Power.
By far.
And we want more of him. You know, he sold us on being a badass elf who's considering, you know, if all the rules of the races are really rules or just guidelines when it comes to relationships and things like that. But we want to see more of Ismael, don't we, Cliff? And the rumors up to now have been Ismael does not have anything to do with season 2, except maybe a cameo at the end to remind you he's still alive, which is shocking. Why wouldn't they use the fan favorite character actor from season 1 in season 2? Who knows? But Ismael...
anonymous girl in the chat says, wait, he's coming back for season 2, right? And the answer is no. We were told that he's not going to be around in season 2.
There's nothing for Arondir to do in season 2. Everything we've heard so far is Arondir is not involved in season 2.
That's too bad, because
and we've
nobody
been reporting
knows
that for 6 months now. Indeed.
Indeed.
Sucks. But Cliff,
because nobody knows how to smolder the way that Ismael Cruz Cordova can smolder at the camera. Man, he knows how to smolder.
Well,
he's good.
Cliff,
he's good at that.
Cliff, I wanted to get your reaction to Ismael's new post. He just posted more Ismael than we ever asked for. You are the one that wrote that big article about nudity in Middle Earth, and so here you go. Here's as much elf as you've ever wanted to see, Cliff, courtesy of Ismael Cruz Cordova.
Thank you so much.
Here's
Thank you for that.
The full elf.
Thank you. Zippity Judah.
It shows us he's not afraid to go there on camera.
He's not afraid to. Well, you know what? Neither is Viggo Mortensen. You saw
That's right.
Captain Fantastic. You saw the history of violence.
Oh, he shows he has a whole fight naked, doesn't
A
he?
naked fight scene. Yeah, it's okay. Hey, some of our best actors in Middle Earth are what you'd consider naturalists.
Oh, Lee Pace
Naturalists.
just had a
Yes.
naked fight in season 2 of his big Apple show. What's it called?
He had
Uh,
a nude scene.
Apothecary, Infection. What's the big sci-fi show that Lee Pace is on?
I forget the name for the moment.
Um,
Not Foundation. No.
Foundation. Yeah. Foundation.
Oh
Uh,
wow. Okay.
Season
Yes.
2, episode 1, which just launched a week ago. Lee
Okay.
Pace spends the first 10 minutes of the show fighting naked in his bedroom, full on, swinging around.
Well, as Flanders would say, "Oh my, Bo Diddley." It's
Oh, and Daniel in the chat
Todd, cover your eyes.
reminds us of Orlando
Todd,
Bloom
cover your
body.
eyes.
There's pictures of Orlando Bloom bodyboarding in the
Okay.
buff. So,
Oh my.
so congrats to Ismael Cordova for carrying on the
For
long tradition
the long
of Lord of the
tradition,
Rings actors.
so to speak. So to speak. Oh, diddly diddly diddly. Okay, that is scrum diddlyumptious. Thanks for that.
All right,
Yummy. Yummy. Thanks
moving
for that.
on.
Yummy.
Moving on.
You want me to say something about that? I'll say yummy. Okay, that's great. Sure. But what else can I say?
So
No.
so
Back
that's
to
Hobbit
serious-
actors, Lord of the Rings
How about-
actors,
how
and now
about
Rings of
we
Power actors.
Go back to serious literary analysis on this
Yes.
show. Maybe? Yeah, maybe we can just do that for a minute. We
Well,
can just
Let's
go
let's
back
stay
to
stay on
serious
Amazon.
literary analysis.
Cliff,
And
let's
media interpretation and analysis.
let's stay on Amazon for
Okay,
a
no, no,
minute.
no, no, no.
IGN is
You guys are
reporting that
so funny.
Amazon
You guys are so
Citadel
funny.
is reportedly a $250 million flop. It's their, believe it's their second most expensive show behind Rings of Power. They did something crazy, and folks, remember, Citadel, the show on Amazon, is made by the Russo brothers, the
Oh.
the guys who pitched young Aragorn and almost made it. It was down to McPain and the Russo brothers
Oh dear.
for the Lord of the Rings $1 billion series. McPain pitched the big second age world, and the Russo brothers pitched young Aragorn and following that whole story. And of course, we know that they chose McPain. But Amazon ended up giving Russo brothers their second show because they're like, oh, what else you got? And they're like, oh, well, we got this idea where we do a U.S. version, an Italian version, and an Indian, continent India version of the same story. So we do the same story, the same script in 3 different countries in 3 different languages, and we film it all at the same time.
Right.
And then in future seasons, the different the different countries will have crossover episodes. And if you're familiar with the US version of like NCIS or FBI or Law and Order, you remember that, all those legal shows, like they do crossover episodes with all the spin-offs. That's what Amazon and the Russo brothers are trying to do with Citadel. That's why it costs so much. They did 3 different versions of the show at the same time. So, but tell me if you heard this before. Amazon executives are getting used to saying this because they say Amazon head of drama says, from a creative perspective, it's a victory because the show is conceived to speak to the world. Every show is not going to be a hit in every place on the same level, but as the franchise grows, I feel like the numbers will grow, including here in the US. There's so many chapters to this. I think you'll start to see the audience start to respond differently as it goes on.
Okay.
Amazon has said the same thing about Rings of Power. Wait till season 2. Wait till future seasons. Amazon and the showrunners have all said, when viewed by future seasons, the first season will get a lot more respect. That's the theory. So they're saying the same thing about Citadel. Basically, Amazon's using the same talking points that they did with Rings of Power. So, um, it's an interesting. It's just an interesting parallel, right? That for the two most expensive shows that they did with the two groups that were in the running for Lord of the Rings. Now they're using both shows underperformed based on their budgets, and Amazon's kind of saying, "Look, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Just wait till you
Yeah,
see
right.
future seasons. Just wait. We'll get you." Um, during
Indeed.
the chat room, I think is wise to the thing. But
Indeed they
folks,
are.
listen,
Yes, they are.
listen. We can explain the executive speak, and we can explain the studio talk, and explain what these words really mean. But I will always go back to why. This is why I was excited day one when they announced that Amazon had
Exact stuff.
acquired the rights, because
Oh.
Amazon has enough money to not care if it's a hit.
Hmm. Okay. Now that is either a weird bit of cynicism or it's the absolute truth. And I hear you. I hear that point that you're making.
And Cliff, all the stuff that we've been hearing, they
Really.
have not penny pinched a bit on season two. The
No,
you
they're
know,
throwing money at that production. They relocated and got new department heads for a costume, production design, armor, everything over there
all the
in
best
Europe
parts
and
of
the
season
UK.
one they threw out, and all the worst part,
Uh,
I don't know.
I don't
But
know what's going to
anyway,
happen next.
the fact
Hello from Scotland. There's Mr. Razak. Nice to see you.
here's the thing. People were asking me at Comic-Con, and Matt, Nerd of the Rings, and Cliff, I'm sure you, uh, do we think Amazon is going to see this TV show through to the end of the fifth season as they promised? And I truly believe that they will, because first off, Jeff Bezos, he don't lose, he fixes. And
Mm-hmm.
if something doesn't work, he fixes. If something doesn't work again, fixes again. I think we're going to get this full story of the Rings of Power, the full story of Sauron, and the creation of the 20 rings, and the
Mm-hmm.
distribution of the 20 rings, and then
Mm-hmm.
the consolidation of the power of the 20 rings into the one. We're going to get
They've
it.
got it. They said they've got it all planned out right down to their final shot
And there's
at the end of season 5, right?
nothing has given me any inclination that they don't plan on fulfilling that storytelling goal. So that's
Yep, I
exciting.
agree.
And
It
and
is.
and it's one of the
Well,
reasons why it's
that
good Amazon has the rights.
that maybe that means that, if at first you don't succeed, try again is a great philosophy, especially if you're trying to get the story right. And as long as everyone's being honest about it and saying, hey, just give the writers more time. There's no more worldwide pandemic. You can have a fully staffed writers' room. You can give them lots more time and lots more resources and extra staff, and you can do it.
Yep.
If they listen to that kind of criticism, which is not unreasonable, that is not in any way a toxic or weird or bizarre slant of conversation. That is actually pretty reasonable and straight up to say, look, we know you've got the resources. We know you can do it. We loved so much of Durin, Disa, and Elrond. And we loved the relationships that they had in Khazad-dûm, and we really think it's great stuff to see, Adar trying to get orcs a better shake in Mordor. All this interesting stuff that's kind of like, okay, I could be drawn back to this storytelling. But as long as you don't mystery box all the heck out of the major characters so that somebody we relate to, Galadriel, gets duped by somebody that she never got duped by ever in the books, because for the sake of mystery boxing, blah, 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 you can do better by letting the writers find better approaches to using, dramatic irony on screen and
Well,
all that stuff.
that brings up something. Let me bring this up. A conversation that
Let the
happened this
writers
weekend on
flex their
Reddit. And Cliff, I want to
skills.
get your reaction. Someone on
Yes.
Reddit posted, "Is Rings of Power still worth watching after being spoiled. And the guy says, or the girl says, I got spoiled on the fact of who Sauron is, and is asking, is that a major part of the plot? Will it detract from enjoying the show? And is it worth
Hmm.
even starting to watch the show
Hmm.
if I already know the big reveal?
Right.
Uh, and so, Cliff, I want to get your reaction because this is the problem with mystery boxes. If you make everything a mystery box, then the show becomes about the mystery box instead of the show.
Like Lost. Looking at you, J.J. Abrams, and the team behind Lost. Right.
The bad robot team that is currently producing Rings of Power.
Ba-dum-bum. Yeah. So I think I think that you would rewatch something if you get a kick out of it enough that you want to rewatch it again. And if you got 36 or 37% completion rate on season 1, that's telling you that people aren't getting a kick out of it to come back and watch it over again. Um, you know,
But
it
is it worth
is
watching? What's your answer to this guy? If he knows the spoiler of Sauron, is it worth watching?
hmm. Well, then you lean into the area of what I've been begging to have more of, which is having the audience know what characters on screen do not know, which creates that dramatic irony, which creates the tension of that engine. Um, but it wasn't written that way. It was written to be, there's there's a Sauron in the distance. Who is it? And they all that stuff with the three acolytes of Sauron suddenly in that episode looking at the stranger and going, it is not him, it's another one. Dun dun dun. It was remember the way the stranger landed and everything around him looked like a flaming eye all around him in that mystery crater. So there were red herrings, plenty of red herrings, trying to make us believe that the Istari, the wizard, was not really a wizard. He might have been Sauron. And online speculation went on for many weeks about whether Halbrand was real or really who he said he was, or whether Adar was who he said he was, or whether the stranger could have been Sauron. And it became a headspin of wearisome. It was a wearisome and wearying process for many in the audience. I think it was, something that was like taxing on the audience to the degree that, I mean, it was like
It just becomes more about the mystery than
it
about
it,
good
it
storytelling.
yeah, it became about how many more playful red herrings and weird little side twists can we get people in the online community talking about while not showing the audience the real threat that, if Sauron had been introduced from the very first scene as a character who wanted to redeem himself. Let's talk about redemption Sauron for a minute, right? Is that what we're always supposed to have believed? And Galadriel was supposed to have slowly been brought into the consciousness of this Sauron who wants to, quote unquote, make amends and better himself. But he wants to do that through, getting you sort of into his alignment of how things should be run and how he does things. And there's the temptation and the trap. But that was such a laborious concept. It was a laborious concept, and it was mystery boxed as a laborious thematic concept. And it was a laborious thing for the audience to get through by the end of the day. So no, I would rewatch season 1 of Rings of Power, not because, oh, you'd know that Halbrand is Sauron from ahead of time. If that had been established differently, we would have had such a different and strong relationship with Redemption Sauron. People would have been referring him to his old Silmarillion name as Myron, the guy who was actually given a chance to go back to Valinor and make atonement. If you want to talk about that stuff, we never even got to thematically explore Sauron wanting atonement. It is absent. If it's that bloody important for us to have this atonement approach to whether Sauron can manipulate Galadriel into a position of getting the atonement he wants. It was just so labored and kind of daft, with a whole subplot about finding a MacGuffin sword that's going to open waters to make the volcano trigger, and it became all that stuff. At this point, you're not spending any time with atonement Sauron. You're not giving real thematic core in season 1 to a Sauron who really feels bad and wants to tell Galadriel, I really feel bad. I think I need to make another approach to this. I think I want to redeem myself. Somehow, Galadriel, can you help me out? What a brave and interesting and rather novel thing it would have been if the audience and Galadriel had known all along that Sauron was there on the field and he wanted something. He wanted to atone for his deeds working for Big Bad Morgoth. That would have been a fair shake of the dice and a fair approach at J.R.R. Tolkien adaptation, without the labor of burying everything under layers and layers and layers of mystery, and then laboriously asking your audience to be patient week by week with tiny extractions and red herrings to get to the bloody thematic power of what Sauron is trying to get for himself. You see what I mean? I don't mean to rant, but I just did. Sorry about that. So no, I would go back and revisit season 1 just for Khazad-dûm and Durin and Disa and Elrond and a whole lot of Arondir and the way he smolders on screen at Bronwyn. Yeah, I would go back for that, and for the music and the production design, and for the
for
bizarre,
all the other reasons that we've given it A plus 10 out of 10 on the sound, the music, visual design, and most of the other characters and the performances.
Yeah. That's exactly what we did give them on the report card,
Right.
and they deserved those high marks on that report card.
Right, totally.
I'm with that, but anyways.
And again, let's remember, who is the Lord of the Rings? Sauron.
He is the Lord of the Rings.
He is literally the title character.
And he does not share
it's
power.
It's not about Frodo. It's not about Samwise. It's not about Aragorn. It's not about anybody else. The entire franchise is literally about Sauron. And as soon as he's dead, we get 6 endings and we go home. So, everything is about, and especially the Rings of Power TV series, it's specifically about Sauron. Not making it about Sauron and hiding Sauron was a waste of everybody's time. So no, I would not encourage...
Thank you for crystallizing that, yes.
I would not encourage this person to watch season 1, because everyone, even the showrunners, have said, wait till season 2 and then you'll like season 1 better. So you know what? Follow their instruction.
So
watch season 2 and then revisit season 1. Because if you just watch season 1 at this point, I think you're going to have a bad time. And you don't want to be another one of those internet commenters that are just...
I had a fair time. It was fairly okay, but I enjoyed quite a bit of it, but there was some of it that I thought was a labor for me to get through.
Yeah. It just got boring.
Anyway,
final segment, real quick, Cliff. Couple notes.
Final segment that people in the chat have been begging for an hour now. Yes.
Well, yeah. A couple quick notes. Interesting news today. Paramount CEO, in a new interview today, confirms that Michael Bay still has absolute power over the Transformers film franchise. And these Bumblebee spin-offs and the new Rise of the Beasts, where everybody thinks, they finally got rid of Michael Bay, now the movies are good. Well, Rise of the Beast didn't perform very well for whatever reason, but the CEO of Transformers confirms Michael Bay still has veto power on everything with a Transformers film. He is in control of the franchise. Separately, Sony Pictures CEO has announced that the door is closed on Spider-Man rejoining the MCU. Sony Pictures is taking back the character Spider-Man, and all future Spider-Man movies will be independently produced by Sony Pictures, not with Marvel Studios.
Oh, dear.
So, this is a reminder that Spider-Man and the X-Men were owned by different different companies, right? And Incredible Hulk was owned by Universal. Spider-Man was owned by uh, Spider-Man was owned by Sony. X-Men were owned by Fox, but Disney bought Fox, and now they own everything. And I believe the rights to Incredible Hulk have now reverted back away from Universal. So I think we're gonna get Incredible Hulk back on Disney Plus, and maybe we'll get Edward Norton back or something.
It
like
is
that.
on Disney Plus, by the way.
So the reason I
I
wanted
just
to
I just watched a couple of scenes from it because I wanted to watch the original Abomination character design against the new Abomination character design.
oh yeah,
And Disney Plus actually does have the Edward Norton, Liv Tyler She-Hulk, which actually features the very first appearance in the MCU of Tony Stark in the post-credit sequence of
that's
that
right.
movie
So
as Tony Stark.
So why are we
RDJ.
bringing up Spider-Man and Transformers? Is because this is why we haven't heard any new news on the Warner Brothers deal and who's taking control of the new Lord of the Rings license for Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema. Because once you make that deal, that person is in control. And just like Michael Bay is still controlling the Transformers franchise, and now Sony did a lease out for Spider-Man, but now Spider-Man is back away from the MCU, and he's his own Sony Pictures mascot. So it is important that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted on whatever deal they're going to make. Maybe it's with Peter Jackson, maybe it's not with Peter Jackson.
Indeed.
But Warner Brothers is going to take all the time that they need to get the right person in charge of Lord of the Rings. And there's a lot of talking points to discuss with regards to that. The other thing I want to remind everybody is that at the end of every episode of Rings of Power, there's a New Line Cinema logo.
Oh, yeah.
As I understand it, and I'll admit I don't have all of the information. Of course, I'm never going to see the legal contracts. But as I understand it, New Line Cinema owns the cinematic rights to the characters they put on screen, including Galadriel and Elrond.
Ah.
And the reason New Line's logo is on Rings of Power is because, like Sony leased out Spider-Man so he could be in Avengers Endgame,
Yeah.
and No Way Home and Far From Home, New Line has leased out Galadriel and Elrond to Rings of Power.
Oh?
Same type of deal. Not exactly.
Really?
But very similar. New Line
Really?
Cinema currently has the rights to these characters because they brought them to the screen first. So they made a deal with Amazon. So now that New Line is back in play, there's potential that just like Sony has taken back the rights to Spider-Man,
Wow.
New Line Cinema could potentially take back the rights
Good
to Elrond
gravy.
and Galadriel.
Good gravy, that's weird.
Unless Amazon had the foresight to pay for 5 seasons and 10 years of rights to those characters. We don't know how long these rights deal lasts. But I want fans to start thinking about how the movies and the TV show will be different, but also consider, just like Spider-Man was put on loan back to Marvel Studios.
That opens up a potential crisis, doesn't it? Does that open up a potential, let's just hypothetically speaking, what kind of a danger zone are we in like that?
Aesthetic and actual characters, because
Wow.
The first rights. Look, J.R.R. Tolkien sold the movie rights to all of the characters.
That's right.
Period.
That's right.
So,
wow, that's fascinating. That's really
so as we
fascinating,
currently
dude.
understand it,
Wow.
Galadriel and Elrond are on loan to Amazon.
And we've never heard this until recently?
So who
Wow.
knows? This is why it's on. People want to talk
Uh,
about how fast will we get season 3? How fast will they finish the show? Will they finish the show if season 2 sucks? What I'm saying is, I believe as of today that Amazon is definitely going to finish the show. And as soon as this writer strike is over, they're going to go full bore into season 3 and just get it done. They have to, because they have to. If they have to go renegotiate the rights to these characters for their TV show, Warner Brothers is going to tell them, you know, touch grass. We're making movies
Wild.
again. How dare you
Wild.
ruin our characters with your C- show?
Wild. The potential crisis there is just beyond comprehension because, okay, the aesthetics, meaning the likeness of characters that are meant to be in the wheelhouse of Hugo Weaving and Kate Blanchett, the likeness of the stranger meant to be in the wheelhouse of Sir Ian McKellen. If indeed, which is still unknown because it's a bloody mystery box, still it might be the stranger, might be Saruman or a blue wizard, we don't know, or someone else. But that's what you're talking about, the aesthetics and the likeness of New Line Cinema characters.
As it pertains to very specific characters, the characters that were main featured. And again,
boy, oh boy.
it's only named featured characters that were in multiple movies previously. So Elrond was in like 5 of the 6 movies. Galadriel was in 3, 4, 5 of the movies, I think. So
Really great question from Durin the Seventh. How do you then separate the movie and TV rights to the same character? This seems to be
this
a
is the
weird.
gambit. This is the gambit that Amazon made, because the Tolkien estate sold the TV rights,
Oh,
but with the caveat
strange.
that you're going to have to play nice and go get what the rights you need to the characters and weapons that you need from Warner Brothers. It's why this franchise is so delicate and so confusing, and it does make our head spin. But so as you see in the news that Michael Bay is still making decisions on Transformers movies, and
Yeah.
Sony Pictures leased Spider-Man out to Marvel Studios, did Avengers Endgame and 3 Spider-Man films, and then
Right.
now they're taking Spider-Man back. We could possibly see the same thing. Imagine Galadriel cannot be in season 5. Which, whatever, she wasn't supposed to be at the battle of Last Alliance of Elves and Men anyways.
No,
But
she did not attend the last Alliance of Elves and Men. She did not attend.
so,
Oh God.
maybe it's a nothing burger anyway. She should
dear.
be there
This
anyway.
is just weird.
Maybe Warner Brothers can force Amazon to make the right decisions for the characters.
I would like to not really go down too much of the branching thought tree of what would happen if certain characters and their likenesses suddenly had to be excluded from a late season.
It's
I
just
just can't imagine that.
well, so this is why I hope that Amazon goes weirder with the show. We've talked about this many times. Talking Animals, Tom Bombadil. Get
Yeah.
weird, get crazy, start putting wild designs together on these characters. Make them your own.
Okay.
And then you have a
Okay.
claim to what you've created. You know?
She did not attend. I'm sorry. It sounded funny. Did I say it that way? I'm sorry. It did sound weird when I said it that way. You guys in the live chat will not let me get away with anything. It's funny. It's very funny. Okay, so what's in the Green Dragon gossip? I'm curious.
What was the Green Dragon? I forgot what I was gonna.
You promised something delirious.
What was it about? About what?
I don't know because you didn't tell me.
Um,
You didn't tell me, so I don't really know. But funny enough, it probably had something to do with season 2. Does it have something to do with season 2 still having more work to do?
Oh, the gossip, the Green Dragon gossip coming out of Comic
Oh,
Con
here we go.
is the gossip is they aren't actually done filming season 2. They're
That's
only
the gossip.
saying they're only
The
saying that
That's the gossip.
to
It's
instill
crazy.
confidence in the show and to scare House of the Dragon and other shows from maybe delaying, because House of the Dragon is currently on strike now. So I think House of the Dragon is on pause. So
I thought that House of the Dragon, in the last headlines that I read, were still continuing their work,
but
and
now
still were on
someone,
camera.
I guess the writers have walked out. I don't know.
Okay.
The British unions acting in solidarity may shut down House of Dragon, which means
Okay,
House of
that's
Dragon
equity.
would slip.
That's actors' equity.
Actors'
In
equity.
England, it's equity. Yeah,
So
that's the union.
the gossip is they're actually not done shooting, which means if we can get leaks, if you're watching the show and you're involved in the show,
Yeah.
if we can get leaks of stuff that people on the show don't like,
Really?
and we can share that and we can express whether we like that or not,
Then that
still
means
a
if they
chance.
go back and pick up, that they could change and make some other reshoots and things.
But they'll need to pay the writers again. So there's still a chance to make season 2 the best show ever.
Okay, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
Oh, you are ever the optimist.
So
Justin.
you know what? Season 2
Ever the
still,
optimist.
I believe season 2 is still on track for next September, and I believe that House of the Dragon may get delayed because of the strikes, and which would mean Rings of Power is not in competition for House of the Dragon this season.
It's safe to say that everything is going to be delayed because of the strikes at this point.
But not Rings
It's really
of Power.
safe to say that.
I believe that Rings of Power
But
has
not
enough time.
but not the War of the Rohirrim.
Not War of the Rohirrim and not Rings of Power. The only thing that stresses me out about Rings of Power release date next September is that is the final 60-day stretch of the U.S. president election, and it's just going to be torture to be on Twitter and or whatever platform we are on at the time, talking about the show when U.S. politics are at their feverish
worst.
At
their feverish worst. Is that the word you're looking for, Justin?
That's the word I'm looking for.
Maybe.
Maybe we need to set up viewing parties in the Discord that's away from social media so we can all watch the show together and chat in the chat room. And by the way, we had a request from Varking Rune Song in the Discord said,
I love Varking
please
Rune
do
Song.
not
He's the best.
release it at midnight again on Thursdays. A lot of us have to work during the week, and doing
can't stay up for an hour and a half. An hour and a half
Lord of the Rings show that requires our full attention because it's dense with lore at midnight on a Thursday. Not great. If House of the Dragon gets delayed, Amazon, Sundays. If HBO has to delay their show, you better take over Sundays. My final thought. Cliff, take it out.
Okay. I love it when a plan comes together. You guys are wonderful in the chat room. And there's good friends and community members here in the live chat who've been with us for a long time. I'm looking at you, Brian, Utaku Senpai, Monica, Cecilia, you're so beautiful. Stephen, Wheatbix, always awesome. And, Anonymous Girl, pretty soon I'll say hi to Princess Toy Nerd. She'll come back. She's always around on the show. You folks are the meat and potatoes of our community. You guys are the building blocks, the Lego bricks that make this creative, wonderful experience happen for all of us. So I want to say a lot of love. Hey, Daisy Kim, you're good. You're great. You guys are great. So if they're not done filming, yes, and if we can express our ideas and our concerns about no more mystery boxing, no more doing it like Lost TV series, just don't do that no more.
Just don't.
And now,
it.
and if anybody just rewind about half an hour and listen to my bloody, weird little winded rant, and I apologize to everyone for pontificating. My apologies. But you know what? It's great to have a community that loves to talk about J.R.R. Tolkien all the time. You guys are amazing. We love these stories. And we do want to see in this world and in our popular culture, we do want to see that the caretakers, the new caretakers at the Embracer Group and the people that they hire and bring on board into their circles that are working on new adaptations earn our trust and get as much fan enthusiasm as did other past adaptations like, Ralph Bakshi and Rankin and Bass and Peter Jackson have given us many, many years of fascinating and interesting takes on Tolkien. Always a fascinating world. Iravandi, you're the best. Love you guys. We're going to sign off, and we're going to ask you guys to stay cool, stay healthy, take good care of yourselves, make sure you're not out in the heat. Don't be frying eggs out on the asphalt outside. I know TikTokers are doing that. They're frying eggs outside on the street. So just don't do it, okay? And a lot of love to you folks. Oh, look, somebody's saying heart, 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 heart. Thanks for those hearts. It's time to sign off. Until next Tuesday, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm not going to call it anything else. At QuickBeam2000, and we're on all social media at The One Ring Net. Just take out the dot, and bam, we'll be back here as soon as you know it next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time for a lot more mischief that I hope we can manage. Okay, little Harry Potter joke there. It was Harry's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Harry, the boy who lived. And you guys are the best. We'll see you next week. Until then, I'd love to say good night and good luck, or rather, buenos noches y buena suerte. Bye, everybody.